sophomore class president for Benicia High School.
Back up just a little bit.
We recently held a staff appreciation week from May 2nd to the 6th, which we served donuts, coffee, and other yummy treats for all of the staffs at Benicia High School, as well as commemorating Lunch Hero Day on the 6th by hanging signs for Lunch Hero and providing good treats. A lot of exams are going on May. We had our advanced replacement exams during May 2nd throughout the 12th. On that Friday, we had a karaoke sponsored by Carrie Highland Foundation for mental health wellness. Last week, juniors completed state testing in English and math. We had our advanced dance show in May 19th throughout the 21st. We also have on May 21st, Benicia hosted the STEAM Festival, Discovery Festival on our campus. Also on May 21st was the Solano County Student Art Fair exhibit at Solano County Fairgrounds. And the first ever Benicia Jazz Festival was the Benicia High School Jazz Bands and Middle School Jazz Bands. On Tuesday, we honor several of our senior reward nights. The senior parade took off earlier today, with senior parading throughout the hall of the elementary school in their cap and gowns. The senior banquet is happening tonight from 6 to 8, where seniors get their yearbook a day early and have time together to sign their yearbooks. Tomorrow, we have our step down rally with senior slideshows and pinball games happening on 7 p.m. Excited for that. Next week is the final week, and then the graduation on Saturday, June 4th, the grad night for all the seniors as well. Hoping all the seniors will have a great night at Benicia High School for the last night before they head off to a new journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You did great. Your first time here. Awesome job. Well done, Sue. Thank you. And you are there, see? So you are welcome to leave. You don't need to stay through this. If you want to, you're welcome to stay, but you probably have other stuff that you'd rather be doing. So thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Okay. Then we're going to move on to the superintendent report. Second to the last one here.
Let's take my mask off for just a minute. I was wondering before we start the meeting that if we could take a moment of silence with one another to acknowledge the terrible event, the tragic event that happened in Texas this week. So if we can take a moment and think about the victims and their families, we'd really appreciate that. Just a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. So let's keep all of them on our thoughts and prayers. I think that's very important. Thank you for that wonderful recognition. I greatly appreciate that. I have one more board meeting, so we don't have to do goodbyes yet. But thank you for that. It means a lot to me, and I've just been absolutely honored to be your superintendent these last 7 years. It's been awesome. So thank you deeply. So we have 5 more days of school left. We're almost there. Lots of good things taking place out at the school sites. Lots of celebrations. We're getting ready for the graduations. And I was hearing some pretty cool things from Ms. Kleinsmith about the speeches. And so we're really looking forward to that. And it's a wonderful way to end the year with all of these punctuating ceremonies. It's beautiful. It's a positive ending. So that is really it from me. So just we have a good full meeting, so I'll keep my comments short.
Thank you. And by the way, YouTube is up and running, so we are now live streaming, just FYI. Yes. We're going to do board reports at this time. Does anybody would like to start? Yes.
I had the great pleasure of going up to Matthew Turner today and participating in the senior walk. And that's all. The senior walk is always so much fun and so kind of heartfelt to see those kids graduating and they work so hard. And and they're in their cap and gowns, and some of their caps are decorated. And it's really just such a beautiful ending for the seniors, but also a wonderful, wonderful sight for elementary school kids. So it was really a great experience today.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and then I did have the opportunity to attend the Willoughby Atkins program last week. It was a rites of passage closing ceremony for students. So it was very inspiring. The guest speaker was actually Andrew Jackson Young. So it was quite an honor to just be in his presence via Zoom. And he had some very encouraging words for students, just reminding them that they are gifts and that everyone has something to offer in this world. So it was a good message, I think, both for the youth and for the adults as a reminder. And that was it. Oh, and several of our students did receive scholarships as well, so that was pretty cool.
Mrs. Zeta. Okay.
Call me doctor.
I'm on a roll tonight. It's okay. So just real quick, two things. CSBA this week was really all about money. They talked a lot about the governor's money and his recommendations going forward and what he was willing and not willing to cover. I know Tim is going to go through that real thoroughly with us again later on. And then also just the fact that it now goes to the legislature and they have until June for the final budget to be approved and come through. Also, last night I participated in our district curriculum committee with Stephanie. And I'm not going to share all the things particular like I normally take notes because I have a habit of stealing thunder, so I won't do that. But they did talk a lot about what was coming up this summer, and she went through in detail the planning for August. So I was already tired thinking this is June and oh my gosh, here we are planning through August already. So lots of good things coming up. I think it was really well laid out, and I think it's going to be some really exciting things to support teachers. So I thought that was great.
Thank you. Ms. Lily, do you have anything to share? Okay, I do. Tomorrow we get to recognize our retirees in our district, so that'll be really nice to be a part of. I'm glad to be able to be a part of that. I also attended the awards ceremony at Benicia High School this year, where the students got their scholarships from members of the community. There was a whole bunch of scholarships available to students, and it was given out just over $200,000 in scholarships. And I just want to say bravo to all those kids because they did an amazing job. And some of the stories that we heard about that night were very touching. So just congratulations to everybody that was part of that evening. I also wanted to share about, I mentor on the side here in Benicia at Liberty High School. And I had my last meetings with two of my students this last Wednesday. And I just have to say, if there's anybody out there that's interested in mentoring a student next year, please reach out to me and I can put you in contact with the right person to get you started, because it is truly magical. It is a wonderful experience, and I think we both gain something from each other during that process. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then I think that is it for me. So, and I was at the Willoughby Atkins event also on Zoom. So it's been busy. So, okay, we're going to move on to our comments. I know, I can't even, comments from the members of the public. Please note that BUSD has moved to in-person board meetings. Masks are strongly recommended but not required. All functions of the board meeting, including public comments, will take place in person. Members of the public may address the board at a regular scheduled meeting on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Speaker cards are available on the entrance table. Please note the item you wish to speak to and submit a card to the board secretary. The board president will call open session general comments during the public comment item. Comments for items on the agenda will be called during the specific time. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker, or the board may limit the total time to 20 minutes per item with the timer displayed on the monitors. By law, no action must be taken or may be taken on any item raised during public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. Please be reminded to keep your comments respectful, as students may be watching the meeting. So I have a little stack of comments here. So a lot of you are here. We don't often have this many people, so thank you for being here. The first person up is Nancy Rothstein.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yep, thank you.
Great. Good evening. I'm a parent of a BHS student who formerly attended Robert Semple and Benicia Middle School, and I'm here to express my opposition to the DARE program. As the only school district within Solano County that still utilizes DARE, it is well past time for us to reject this program. While extensive research shows that this program is ineffective and outdated, I want to specifically address this as an equity issue. Perhaps you'll be told that some people support this program. Some people are happy that there are fully armed police coming to elementary schools to interact with their kids. This doesn't matter. If you understand and truly care about equity, then you understand that what matters is that this program is causing real harm to kids and families in our community. It is not enough that it's okay with some people. That's the point of equity. The people who have the privilege of feeling unharmed by something are not the ones who should determine if that harm continues for others. All people with power need to protect all members of the community. The harm needs to stop. And if you go deeper and truly understand that we are all one, you know that harm to any child, to any family, truly hurts us all. Who can deny that simply having a different complexion leads to different experiences with the police? That due to systemic racism and racialized disparities in police contact, Black and brown parents have to have the talk with their children to teach them how to stay safe when interacting with police. As a parent of a child who presents as white, I fear him having a car accident or getting a speeding ticket, but my expectation of him being harassed or killed by the police is very low. It is enraging and nauseating to know that simply based on skin color, my Black and brown friends and community members face this terror daily. We all see the news and hear again and again. There is nowhere to hide from this reality. Knowing this, how traumatizing do you think it is for kids to face police in full tactical gear coming to their schools? Fifth graders were running to their teachers crying, asking who was getting arrested. Is this how we want to protect our children's mental health? Are these the experiences we want our community parents to have to hear about and process with their kids at the end of the day? At a time when, bizarrely, laws are being passed to protect white kids' feelings about the racist realities that kids of color actually endure, we have to stand up and do better. Why are the police being given access to instruct our children? They are not qualified for this task. If we want education or counseling about substance use, hiring professionally trained counselors would be a more appropriate approach. Please don't tell me these police have training to do this program. It is a drop in the bucket compared to what teachers and counselors go through. And if this training was so effective, the incident with the thin blue line t-shirts being handed out to fifth graders would never have happened. That symbol has been flown at hate rallies next to swastikas and Confederate flags. It has been used as a direct reactionary response to the call to protect Black lives, and BPD handed it out to fifth graders. Not acceptable. On this issue, accountability falls to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Vicki Dennis.
Hello, my name's Vicki Byram Dennis, and I'm a resident of Benicia. I'm speaking for myself tonight, as well as for my husband, Ralph Dennis, who couldn't be here. As members of the Benicia community, we're concerned about the DARE programs in our school. We're asking you to remove this program from all our school sites. Most school districts around the country have realized and determined the DARE program is ineffective, based on extensive research that has been done repeatedly. Currently, Benicia is the only school district within Solano County that still utilizes this program. The program's based on outdated theories of human learning behavior. It was created in the 1980s, and times have changed. It is akin to showing the 1930s reefer madness to today's students and expecting a positive result. It's time for Benicia to accept change and update our own thinking and programs. Most importantly, it appears this community relations program does the opposite of its stated intention. Instead of bringing the community together around the issue of drug awareness education, it's driven us further apart. Given the racial disparities in police contact, school discipline, and the racialized war on drugs, such a program is not an adequate means of building community relationships with disenfranchised people. Benicia is tired of the racial and political disparities in our community. The community is calling for increased accountability from our schools and our elected officials. Now's the time to take action to create the world and the community that we all envision. Ralph and I add our names to the others here tonight and request that the board put this topic on the next meeting agenda for a vote to terminate the DARE contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Krista Heredia.
Good evening, Krista Heredia. I have 3 kids in the district. One, he's old now, he's 23, but he went to the middle school and the high school. My younger ones attend Robert Semple. They're 4th graders and 2nd graders. You guys might recognize my name. I email you a lot. I've met with a lot of people in this room, and I don't take that for granted, talking about a lot of these same topics. So I want to say, I just need to acknowledge I have a heavy heart today, like I know a lot of us do, about what's happening in the world and children and teachers who have died by gun violence. And for any teachers listening, I just want you to know that we love you, we support you. We ask too much of you. Anyway, I'm here to also talk about the DARE program. I request that someone from the board please put this on your next agenda to talk about it, vote on it. I don't know the process to get rid of this contract, but whatever it is, can we please discuss it, preferably at the next meeting? I'm not going to waste my 3 minutes citing any things. People have already talked, gave you lots of good information. One piece of data I would like to point out that in the state of California, we have 58 counties, 482 municipalities. Of those 482 towns and cities, only 27 currently are contracting with the DARE program. That's only 5.5%. To me, that data alone speaks volumes. That Benicia, we are among the last 5% of cities who somehow still do this program, and we need to think about why. My children attend Robert Semple, like I said, and DARE has been a hot topic ever since the Thin Blue Line t-shirts have been distributed. I'm an active member of our PTG. I'm part of our site council. I currently serve as our equity and inclusion co-chair for our PTG group. And as a group, we've done a lot. We've met with our board leadership. We've met with our police chief Green. We've hired an agency called Circles for Social Change to do some community forums for our teachers and our students and our families. And from that, I want to point out in our meeting with Chief Green, I asked him directly if he had any evidence that this DARE program is effective, and his answer to me was no. The police do not have any evidence or research that this DARE program is effective, but he followed it up by saying he gets positive feedback from his officers about how they like to go to the schools and interact with the kids, which essentially means that even the police themselves are aware that DARE is ineffective in its content, but they continue to utilize it as a community outreach opportunity. I have my own personal politics about police on campus that I think I can save for another time. I do want to personally thank President Zeta for attending some of our community meetings that we've had, hearing teachers and staff, and my time's running out. I hope that you can relay some of the things that you heard from teachers and students about how they're affected by those t-shirts, but also just by the DARE program in general. And I think that's all I have. I just want to tell you, I don't want my kids to participate in this program. And if it continues, I will choose to opt them out for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mark Christian.
Hello, is this a good face mic distance?
Yeah, you're good.
Great, thank you. Hello. As said, my name is Mark Christian, and I am the parent of a child here in the district. I just want to add my voice to the other parents who have called for the discontinuation of DARE in our school district. As they said, we are the only remaining school district in our county that still uses it, and DARE lost its federal funding in 1998. That's sort of when the shoe started to drop for this being regarded as an effective program. 1998. That's the year that President Clinton was impeached. Jerry left the Spice Girls. Bruce Willis saved the world with Armageddon, and Aerosmith did not miss a thing about it. Britney Spears had her first single. Titanic came out on 2 VHS tapes. Everyone was worried about Y2K. 1998 was 24 years ago, and I hope you can feel that distance. That's how long it's been since this was well regarded as a program worthy of putting our children through. And before we know it, 24 years ago, it's not going to be long before there are students who have parents that were born after DARE lost its funding. I believe that DARE is outdated beyond repair and does not have a place in a contemporary school setting. It is a flag with 49 stars. It is time to take it down, and it's time for us to look forward and join the rest of Solano County, the other 94.5% of municipalities, and remove DARE. So please consider agendizing this at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Greg Horton.
My name is Greg. I'm also a parent of a student within the BUSD system, and I'm talking to you today about the DARE program. I'm strongly suggesting that you drop it. It's outdated, it makes no sense, and it doesn't do what it says on the label. As Mark just said, it has been defunded for 24 years now by the federal government, and it doesn't do the job it's supposed to do, which is just to dissuade drug use from teens. Back in February, when those T-shirts were found to be passed out to students, that's pretty appalling. I mean, that is a symbol that is you know, a modern day swastika, in my opinion. The thin blue line is a symbol that is made to divide people, and it was a direct response to Black Lives Matter, and they came up with Blue Lives Matter. Sorry, nobody is assigned cop at birth, so there's no such thing as a blue life. It's a misnomer, and it's a symbol that's used to divide people. And to put that on T-shirts that you're giving out to kids, you are telling them that there is an us and a them. There is a bad and a good person. When people who do drugs are not bad people, we shouldn't be telling our children that. You know, and this DARE program is just another way to perpetuate the propaganda around drug use that doesn't make any sense. You know, I'll talk from my own experience. I didn't do drugs in high school. I don't do drugs now. Doesn't fit my lifestyle. But to have a program that's ineffective in what it does is just, it's silly to me. And I would like this board to consider bringing it up as an item next time, vote on it, and get more public comment, because we have there's been a petition going around. 130 plus parents have signed this petition to say that they want DARE gone. And I feel that if this petition goes even further than the circles it has, it will get more signatures, because people know that this program is ineffective. We're the only school district in Solano County that does it. Why is that? Let's get rid of it. Let's figure out solutions that actually work. Let's figure out relationships where students can interact with our community, and we can actually solve the problems that our students are facing, instead of just giving something for the cops to feel good about. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse Mueller.
Hello. I was hoping to start with a process comment. I think one of the things that we could take from the pandemic that we've gone through is that there is a place for virtual experience, and I do appreciate that participation in civics and engagement, it happens better in real time. So I can understand not having people allowed to put their comments on voicemail anymore. Mm-hmm. But it seems like there's a place for virtual real-time participation to encourage people that can't physically get here to still participate in the meeting. But I am here to also talk about the DARE program, and there's others more eloquent than I that have spoken before and probably after. Anecdotally, I remember the DARE program from when I was a student as kind of a joke. And having been away from school for a long time until I had children, I guess it was a little surprising to me that DARE was still taking place. And the way that I found out that it was taking place still was the blue line shirt incident, which was horrifying. And I would add to Krista that my children, too, that go to Robert Semple, will not be participating in the DARE program, whether it's removed or not. I think that there's been the citing of statistics in terms of how the use of this program is waning across the country in California. And I think, I have 2 jobs and 2 kids, so I don't have a lot of time for analysis, but I think if you look at where it's still taking place, there would be a correlation with diversity and equity not having a strong showing. And I don't think that Benicia should be in that group. Our resources would be better spent and our children better served by finally eliminating this program and shifting focus to programs and efforts that live up to the diversity and equity rhetoric that I've been encouraged to hear recently from Benicia leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Burns.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment. I actually go by Matt, but I get weird when I fill out forms. That's my first name.
Oh, okay.
But thank
Thanks.
you. I wrote it down. You did it right. Appreciate you. Guess what? Talking about DARE. I would like to add it to the agenda. We got to get rid of this thing. I am not a parent yet. Hope to be. Don't want my kids to go through DARE. It doesn't work. Obviously, it's been proven time and time again. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration gave the current, from what I understand, DARE program, Keeping It Real, a 1.5 out of 4 rating on its readiness to distribute. One study asked the children about DARE. The children said, they lie to you to get you to not do drugs. Another child responded, yeah, they think you're dumb. The interviewer asked, does that work? Do you think that works? The kids responded no, and then they laughed. Aside from the studies, we have our police force on social media recently applauding themselves for seizing 50 doses of LSD that was purchased online by a 15-year-old Venetian. So just 5 years after completing the DARE program or so, they're buying LSD online? That doesn't seem like it's keeping kids off drugs. I also sound like I'm a little hot. Sorry, I speak loud. If you want to prevent drug use, the police aren't the right people to teach this. They go through an 80-hour training course that sounds like it has less to do with drug abuse education and more about how to handle kids. You have to go to school longer to do someone's nails in California. Literally. But apparently, there are police officers on our police force who can't or won't properly follow training on how to use the automatic license plate reader system after several months and however many retrainings. So what makes us think that these people are capable to teach our children about the complexities and nuances of drug abuse? Because they took an 80-hour course, do we let teachers come into our school after they take an 80-hour course and teach something as simple as math? It doesn't seem like it. So in regard to police showing up in their full SWAT gear, running out of time. How many terrorized children does it take for us to get rid of something that causes harm? We know the stories. Y'all were here. Saw some of you at the circles. Which children's feelings is our BUSD going to prioritize, and why? Not to mention the indoctrinating nature of the DARE program, trying to convince young impressionable kids that cops are somehow this happy Santa Claus who hands out free gifts if you do and believe what they say. That cops are always well-intentioned, good people who are always on the right side of what's happening, somehow glossing over or gaslighting children who have experienced violence and loss of family members to the police force. So we have far-right anti-government extremists in the sheriffs. We have badge-bending cops in Vallejo proudly showing off.
Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jen Burns.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm also talking about DARE. Thank you for allowing me time to speak. My name is Jen Burns. I'm a resident of Benicia. I'm asking you all to add to the agenda to remove the DARE program from Benicia schools. It has proven to be ineffective and is a waste of time and money. I remember when I was in DARE in 5th grade, the police were so certain that marijuana was a bad drug. They drilled it into us. And now it's not only legalized for leisure use, but it has also medicinal properties. And more than half of the US has decriminalized it. So what changed from then and now? Did marijuana get a makeover? No. The DARE program was just looking for ways to criminalize people who wanted to get high, creating stereotypes and judgments on anyone who does. Looking back, the DARE program is just another war on drugs. And that's how, when I look back on it, that's exactly how I see it now. Along with its ineffectiveness, police are just not a good fit to teach at schools. They don't have the training, they are scaring the children, and with the recent tragedy at Uvalde Elementary, I can't imagine how guns on campus would make them or any parents feel safe. Not to mention, they are also forcing their own agenda onto these kids by gifting them with symbols of hate. Of course, I'm talking about the Thin Blue Line t-shirts. Yes, the Thin Blue Line flag is a symbol of hate. It was literally and intentionally birthed in defense of police murdering Black civilians. And yet, we think it's a good idea to have the Thin Blue Line flags in our schools to promote the people who murder Black civilians. We may as well hand out swastikas and, slave patrol badges. The police have no right being on campus, and the DARE program is not worth our time and money. I would also like to add, as someone else mentioned, that I also prefer a hybrid meeting process. Virtual and in-person creates the most accessibility for the voices of the people of Benicia. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Benke Chapman.
Good evening, everyone. Many of you do know me. I am a teacher at Robert Semple, but I am here mostly as a parent because I feel like the DARE program definitely should be discontinued. I do have personal experience, and I do have police officers do come on our campus. But after this DARE program, it's definitely become even more evident that this program should be discontinued. I've talked to teachers on my campus personally, especially 5th grade teachers who have police officers come in their classrooms, and they agree that this program isn't real effective, that a teacher could teach this information much better because we're qualified as teachers. And then if the primary purpose of having Benicia police officers still in our schools is to build community and connection, teaching the DARE program is not very evident through this program because they came on our campus with full tactile gear. My own students asked, are they arresting someone? Did someone get in trouble? So it definitely did not make my students feel comfortable. And in addition, if a program is supposed to be teaching nonviolence, the same day that the celebration happened with the police officers there, a fight broke out among the 5th graders. So I think that's pretty evidence that it's not reducing aggression or violence on our campus. As a parent personally, I also feel I should be the one that teaches about drug use to my own children. I don't think it's necessary or appropriate for these lessons in our elementary schools, which is obviously evident from plenty of research and studies that have been done. I really appreciate it, and I hope you can add this to your agenda the next meeting and to terminate the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next speaker, Mariana Moore.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Whatever, it's whatever.
It's been a very long day, sorry. My name is Mariana Moore, and I'm speaking to you as an elder in this school system. I did the math today, and I've been involved in the school system for 45 years, which kind of blows my mind. So I moved here at the age of 11 and went to the middle school when it was brand new, then went to the high school, and then I was a mother raising my daughter. She went through Mills and then up through the chain. And now I'm parenting my 2 granddaughters, and they go to Mary Farmer. So I've been in this system for a long time, and I have great respect for the love of education and how the teachers love on our kids. I especially want to call out Mary Farmer. It's a beautiful, beautifully run, loving school. So I always try to lift them up when I'm speaking. Their motto is be kind, be safe, and be responsible. And I want to talk about safety in a bit. But first, I want to also echo the requests you've heard tonight to consider, reconsider, and terminate the DARE program. When my daughter went through that program 30 years ago, it was a bad experience for her. She stood up on stage, a police officer stood next to her, and she felt compelled and sort of intimidated to sign the poster that she'd never do drugs. And she came home and cried and told me about it. So I called Principal Blaufarb, and I said, we have to meet and talk about this. And we had a conversation. I thought progress was made. So imagine how stunned and upset I was. When I heard about the Thin Blue Line t-shirt, I thought 30 years later, and we've learned nothing. And the context for the conversation now is so much deeper and more urgent after the murder of George Floyd. I can't believe we're even having to have this conversation. I say that to you as an elder. And lastly, I want to talk about safety. You know, in Mary Farmer, it's social and emotional learning, it's kindness, it's inclusion. Again, they do it beautifully. I'm so proud of that school, Principal Fleming. And so DARE just seems so discordant with that spirit of safety, and especially with all that's happened in Uvalde and the mass killings throughout the country. We must think differently about safety. We must think differently about inclusion. We have no time to waste on this. The moment is now. So I ask you to take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Eleanor, is it Purdy? Proudy, sorry.
Hi, good evening, school board members. Thank you very much for your time. I'm Eleanor Proudy. I'm a parent of 2 people who graduated from Benicia High School quite a while ago, 2010 and 2014. At the time that they went through the DARE program in 2003 and 2007, my husband, who is a professor of public health, was appalled that this program was happening. He knew at that time that the evidence was very clear that it was not an effective program. We decided to keep our kids out of the graduation portion that was out of school hours. We let them go through, so we weren't kind of calling them out among their peers for not going, but we were just really surprised and appalled that the time that was taken out of the school day, we know the school day is very packed. The choices that are made about how children spend their time are important. And so the issue of substance use disorder, also really serious, has only become more so now. It's the cause of tens of thousands of deaths every year. And so we need to be careful about how we talk about that and who talks about it and how they are trained. And I just think the DARE program is just not the right choice. For all the reasons that you have heard, I want to thank my colleagues in the community who decided to take this issue public. Instead of keeping it at home as we did, we talked to our kids about it. We talked to our kids about what substance use disorder means, how it can destroy lives, and where law enforcement comes in, which is not really in actually addressing the people and in curing and helping people get out of that system. So just would reiterate what the others have said. We'd ask you all to consider this, to think about how you're spending our time and resources, and that they can be spent better for the benefit of all of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker this evening is Brianne Marshall.
I am not here about DARE. I did not know there was the DARE Palooza this evening. So thank you guys for that. That was really great, actually. So I am here to address safety concerns for students and staff in our district. I think our awareness is all very heightened right now. I sent a letter to all of you, an email. I want to thank Alfredo for giving me a thorough response to that. I really appreciate that. I understand the project is so much bigger than fences and locks, but as a parent, you know, that's kind of what I'm at right now. Like, that's all that's in my power to advocate for. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of all the details of the vulnerabilities, but we have classrooms exposed, we have our front office exposed, we have sorry, Joe Henderson, by the way, but I speak for the whole district. But you know, we have phone line concerns for secure phone lines at the campus should something happen. I know Site Council has expressed concerns that haven't, this is not pointing fingers, but that haven't been addressed for either practical reasons or just, you know, there's so many other things going on. And every time, you know, nothing, we all react because we remember how important it is, and then time goes on and other issues come up, and it's easy to kind of forget the urgency, and nothing is more urgent than the security and safety of our students. You know, many of them, that is their safe space. And once that's gone, you know, it's a huge leap of trust to drop our kids off in the morning. And, you know, we all do the best we can, but, you know, we want to keep them safe. So I've heard from staff members, students, parents, site council members, you know, specific concerns. And you know, I know that security consultants have been brought in over the years, and I'm not privy to what they said. I understand that's not public knowledge. I understand why. So I just want to make sure that we continue. Some steps have been made already, and that's great, but I want to make sure that that momentum continues. You know, what can we do as parents? What can we do as a district? What can we do as a community? You know, PTG has money to spend. Like, if it's a matter of us helping fundraise or contribute, you know, we'd love to do that. So we just want to really make sure that these steps aren't temporary. We really want to protect, I know everybody wants to protect our children and our staff members and make sure everybody is safe when they come to school each day. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 11, our consent calendar. Excuse me. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled and discussed. Can I get a motion on accepting the consent calendar as written?
I move that we approve the consent calendar as written.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, you guys are going to fight
Everybody
over that.
You got a second.
Okay, tell Georgina who is seconding it.
I'm gonna go with. She can,
Okay, thank you.
pick anybody she.
Roll call, please.
President Seda.
Yes.
Trustee Moss. Trustee Ferrucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
And Trustee Gross.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our item number 12, communication informational items. Dr. Young, I'm going to let you take this one.
Very good. Well, you probably wouldn't hear somebody use the words exciting and board policies in the same sentence, but I am going to say that we're very excited to bring to you this evening all of the board policies that are brought forth to school districts. And I want to start off by thanking Ms. Martinez. She encouraged us earlier in the year. She went through a similar process in Napa where you contract with CSBA, School Board Services, and what they do is they come in and they worked with us for, I think it was a good week, and we were just dedicated to it. And then we had many days following up where all of the board policies were given to all of the departments where they were related, and they looked at them, they reviewed them, and they made sure that they were all in alignment with Ed Code. So what you have there is this gigantic document, and I appreciate Ms. Ferrucci and other trustees who weighed in as we went through it. But this is a really wonderful opportunity for us to have all of our board policies up to date, matching Ed Code. And so, it's just it's a big deal. And again, I thank all my staff, or the staff, not my staff, the staff, for helping and spending so much time. We spent days and days on it because we wanted to make sure they were up to date. And these policies are important, right? I mean, they guide the work, and things come up, and we need to make decisions around things, and we say, let's take a look at board policy. So tonight, as we customarily do when we used to bring them to you in bits and pieces, it's the whole enchilada. It's all of them, and they're all updated. And you had your first reading. I'm sure you enjoyed reading them over there. So it's first reading. If just open it up. Do you have any questions? And if not, we bring them back on June 9th for approval, and you guys are all up to date.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Young? No? We're good? So we will have you bring it back on June 9th then.
We need to make a motion, right?
No, we bring that information, and we
Information.
bring it back for a first reading,
And the next one.
then we'll bring it back. So thanks to my team and everybody who helped, and again, Ms. Martinez was a real leader in this, so thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. 12.2, California State Teachers Retirement System, Calstrs Law Compliance Audit for the Benicia Unified School District. Mr. Rayhill.
Yes, good evening. We have this item for just for your information tonight from our employees retirement plan, the Calstrs compliance audit, and public school teachers and other certificated employees are covered by the Calstrs program for their retirement. And periodically, it's not an annual audit, but periodically from time to time, Calstrs contacts school districts in our state and does an audit in regards to compliance with the retirement contributions and the retirement reporting. On May 12th, Calstrs provided the attached final report for the Calstrs compliant audit, and we're pleased that that audit services department has determined that the school district reported remuneration, in addition to salary, the special compensation to Calstrs in compliance with retirement law for all the sampled individuals within the audit period. So we provided that to our County Office of Education and to our district's external financial auditors. No recommended motion tonight, just information to share the good news.
Anybody have any comments or questions? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Rayhill. Our next item, this is going to be an interesting item, is 12.4, public hearing and discussion of the local grant updates, 12.3. Dr. Beetson.
All right, thank you so much. As you know, I've brought to you over the last year several different grants that have come from the State Department. And as Mr. Rayhill and I were doing the final expenditure portions of the Lcap this year, we needed to make some adjustments to continue some of these in outer years. So there's nothing new that you haven't seen. We've just changed some funding sources. And so I just wanted to bring those to you as an update. Okay, so really it was updating some of the where different actions and services would be provided through different grants. And so you've seen this number before. This was the amount that we received in the one-time grant since the onset of COVID. And you know that our goal all along was to strategically stretch that funding out with those actions and services for as many years as possible. And so really, this short presentation just shows kind of what we had originally planned to do, which I brought to you, and how things shifted based on when we looked at the final expenditures for this year and what was really left over. So all along we had done projections and we wanted to adjust where things fell so that we could continue those actions and services further. I'm not going to go through every one of these because I think you can see where the shifts happen. The big one I did want to point out was in educator effectiveness. So originally we had used one-time money in the past for years to do teacher induction and administrative coaching, and we were going to replace that with some of the educator effectiveness money through conversation and looking at other things that we needed to do. We shifted that to the ongoing budget, the LCFF budget, so that we could free up that funding, and with that money we were able to fund the ELD direct service teacher / literacy support teacher.
which I had brought to you in the past. So we just rearranged where the funding was for all of these items. But the most exciting thing is, look at this fancy slide I made. This
Wow, I like it, something new.
is new one-time grants we just learned about that we will be getting for this upcoming year. So $6 million more dollars, right? So with that, we will continue to work with our stakeholders and look at that. But we, again, if these actions and services continue to prove to be effective, we will be able to continue to fund them in outer years. That's all I have.
Oh my
Well, Tim put the smiley on the last one, so I had to, do something.
Love it. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're moving on to item 12.4, public hearing and discussion of the local control and accountability plan. I'm going to open the public hearing for comments, or I'm going to close the meeting. And then I'm going to see if there's anybody out here that has any comments regarding this particular item. I don't see anybody. I'm going to open it back up, and we are going to turn it over to Dr. Beetson.
Sure, thank you again. I don't know that you're going to see much new in here because over the last few board meetings, we've been bringing chunks of this work to you, but this is the proposed strategic plan, Lcap, in its entirety. And so really, this presentation covers all of these areas. What's the process for the strategic plan? How is it funded? What types of metrics are required to be in there? What are our proposed goals, actions, and services? Inside of those goals, actions, and services, we have a section that we have to pull out for increased and improved services, and those are things that are particularly targeted for our income eligible, our English learners, and our foster and homeless youth. So they're not different than what's in the goals and actions, but we have to call them out in a specific section. And then finally, the budget summary. I will go over that relatively briefly because you're going to hear a much more in-depth presentation from my colleague. As always, we like to start because everything should be aligned with our district's vision and mission and beliefs. And so we always put that in to ground us in this work. And then this slide just really goes through what the process is for the development of the Lcap. I think I brought this to you way back in the fall, but back in 2013, the local control funding formula became law, and with that became this requirement to develop a very robust accountability plan that also includes supplemental funding, which is that funding for those 3 student groups I just mentioned. The next part is that the template, and I think it's well over 100 pages, 170 something pages, is the required template by the state. There, we cannot make those changes. There are a couple new sections this year, all of which you've seen in the past because you've had to approve, but when we print out the Lcap in its entirety, it all comes together. So the very first section you'll see is called the Parent Budget Overview, and it is just the budget in some graph form, and I'll show you that in a minute. Back in, I believe it was January timeframe, the new section was the supplement to the annual update. So that was a brand new section for this year only as a way to bridge all of those one-time fundings and show where they were landing in the work that we were doing. Then there's the annual update, and that in this template is right alongside the goals, and it basically shows this is what you plan to do, this is what you actually did, this is what you plan to spend, this is what you actually spent, and the update in the data metrics. This is where you were, how did we do this year? There's a whole section on engaging education partners that used to be called Stakeholder Engagement. They've changed the term for that and the requirements around there. The metrics, goals, actions, and services, the increased and improved services, and the budget. So if you think about those in chapters as you read through the Lcap, you'll see all of those. And then there's the compliance piece, which is coming to you tonight with a public hearing to present this information. We'll bring it back to you on June 9th for board adoption. Then from there, it goes to the county. They will do an approval. I think my date is July 20th, where they'll take me through any recommendations that they have. And then once they put their stamp of approval on it, it goes to the state. And then we usually don't hear from the state until the fall. But typically, there aren't any issues at that point. I'm not going to go through this part. I've attached the board presentation. I guess it was February I brought it to you. This was the supplement to the annual update, and it was really to align all of those grants with the strategic plan LCAP. And this is the annual update section where we get to, and this presentation is just sort of the highlights. You can read it in its entirety. That's attached as well. But this is really where we talk about in goal 1, all the actions and services were fully implemented. The caveat there is we've had some fewer participants for optional professional development because of the structure and course of this year with COVID. So on those optional ones, we had hoped for more. We didn't get as many as we liked. Goal 2, again, we were able to implement all actions and services, but those professional development opportunities that required substitutes, teachers to be out of the class, we were unable to do those this year because of the nature of this year. Goal 3, again, we were very fortunate. We were able to implement all of the actions and services. And so some of the shifts were we had many more students participate in independent study than we had originally planned for. So when you look at the budget for that, that part will be higher in increase. And we were unable to fill the technology mentor positions, and then again, participation in some of those optional professional development days. And then finally, in the equity and opportunity goal, most of those were fully implemented. We had many more participants in the Willie B. Atkins because we hosted our own chapter. And so again, those are one of those places where when you look at the budget side, you'll see an increase from what we had originally anticipated. And then we were unable to fill the 50% equity coordinator position. Absolutely.
In terms of the professional development, was that in person?
Some was in person, and a lot of it was online. People could participate via Zoom.
I was curious why people wouldn't. Just wondering, if it was all in person, I could see.
Yeah, most of it was online. I think it was just the amount. It was a very heavy, stressful year, and so adding one more thing, it just became one more thing. We did have I think we had 25 people participate, but we had budgeted for much more. So we want to be able to offer that again next year. Absolutely. Whoops, I skipped one. This slide just shows that we had over 58 opportunities for input between district teams and parent outreach and surveys. We've met monthly with our El Capitan group, which includes members of our BTA and CSEA are invited. I've met with the SELPA, so all of the groups that we needed to meet with over the course of the year. And then just, you all know this already, but the Lcff funding, we get funding in 2 different ways. One is our principal apportionment, which is the base funding that we get for our students, and then we get that 20% bump for our supplemental. And again, that similar slide of the 10 million, so that's also included in our LCAP. And this just shows sort of how all of those pieces work together. This is a comprehensive funding. So the LCAP is not only our Lcff funding, but we have different grants that also contribute to funding the actions and services inside of the LCAP. The next 2 slides really show the mandatory state priorities that we have to show that we are meeting through our actions and services and the metrics. And so there's a whole checklist here, and there's 8 different priorities, from making sure that we're adhering to state standards, what does our school climate look like, student engagement, student achievement, so all of those data points. So this is just a slide that shows the compliance components of the LCAP. And again, back in the fall, I brought this to you because not only do we have state required data and local data that we have to present, but then there are some that are, like I said, local data that doesn't show up on the dashboard, and we have to do some self-study on whether or not we meet those criteria. And so we brought this to you back in the fall. Here are all of the different data sets that we collect data on and monitor as we go through. Most of them are required, and then you can see the local data that we chose to include as well. I shared these next few slides with you. These are our data points. I'm not going to go through them again tonight unless you have questions, but the story I'm trying to show is that the LCAP is built starting with our district's mission and vision, going through what the requirements are. It's based, we have to make our decisions on how we spend our funding based on data. But if anybody has any questions, these are the same slides I showed you at the last board meeting. So if you're okay, I'll go through unless you have questions. All of that led up to us maintaining our 4 LCAP goals for this upcoming school year. As you know, we have one in social emotional learning, 2 academic goals, one focusing on literacy, one focusing on math, and then our equity and opportunity goals. So those have not changed. And then these next few slides, I think we've gone through them at the last several board meetings as well, but here's the highlights of what you would see in this LCAP for next school year. And so we're so fortunate because of this one-time funding to be able to stretch out those dollars to continue the additional counselors and interns, to provide training on social emotional learning. We have our staffing for our wellness center that we're able to continue. We can continue our direct and indirect support with those special friends, a student services director, mental health clinicians, so we can continue all of those services. We'll continue to support NCI, which is non-crisis intervention, and PBIS, Care Solace, which is a organization that we contract with, that if a student is in crisis or any member of their family, instead of that family trying to get on with Kaiser or whatever their service provider is and try to find a counselor, this company will stay on with them, find them a good match, and make sure it's kind of like a handoff until that family or person can get care. Sources of strength, additional campus supervisor. So we're able to keep all of that because of this one-time funding. That's just goal 1. Equity and opportunity. I don't know why I put these slides side by side here. Equity and opportunity. We're going to continue the district equity team. We will continue to contract with equity facilitators, and we're right now collecting feedback and quotes for services for next year. And then we'll continue to make sure that we have a robust professional learning plan that underlies all of this work. And then between our 2 academic goals, we will have and actually increase trained intervention assistants at the K-5 level so that we can do literacy and math. We will continue to host Benicia Reads, which we're very excited about, and partner with our city on. Content collaboration days, we have our fingers crossed that we have subs and that this COVID piece kind of goes away so we can get back to some of that robust professional learning opportunity for teachers to get together. And one of the pieces that I just shared in that last grant was the direct service provider for English learners at the elementary school, and the assessment system. So we started using a new assessment system to really monitor progress, and it's called, the name just went out of my head, NWEA MAP, thank you. And so we're going to continue that, and then we're still able next year to continue the smaller class sizes by those increased teachers at all. And it goes on and on. And so we have a data analytics system that matches with our ARIES. And so we're able to look at data historically, and it's all in one place, and it's really wonderful to be able to really track data. I talked about the Tier 2 math support with the additional instructional assistance. We'll continue to support our one-to-one technology environment. We know we have the grant for the after-school program that will be coming. We haven't yet learned exactly how much money we're going to get for that, but we will be doing some surveying on how this year went to plan for next year. Really continuing to support our school library collections so that they can continue to diversify and expand their collections. I don't know what's happening to my tongue. We're hoping to continue to partner with Valero. They fund the elementary STEAM wheel, and so hopefully we'll be able to continue that. The CTE pathways at the high school, and then we provide support for our Title I schools for outdoor education. So that is like in a summary nutshell, many of the things that are in the LCAP. This next slide really is just pulling out of all of those items that are funded with our supplemental funds that do above and beyond outreach for families of that are income eligible EL foster and homeless youth. Okay. And then these next two slides are right out of the parent budget overview, and it shows how the funding is sliced and diced through the LCAP. And so I'm going to let Mr. Rahill go into more in depth with that, but this slide is a great one, which just shows our total budget general fund expenditures and then what's in our LCAP. And do you have any questions?
I'm just curious. I don't know how to word this correctly, but it's taken one little teeny tiny piece out of everything. That was great. In terms of the reach survey, just from I'm trying to figure out how to say it. I've always been curious. Does the survey? Do you get valuable information out of it? Does it ask the right questions? And does it ask in? I've always wondered, does it ask in a way where the kids' answers are in depth enough to where we can actually get actionable material out of it?
I think it does, and I think we could actually do a great deep dive into that. I think the questions in the survey are very specific, so they're clustered under those 4 letters: relationships, effort, aspirations, cognition, and heart. Thank you. And I wish I had some samples to share with you. But
yeah, I didn't mean to pull. I wasn't trying to trip anybody up. I was just curious.
I feel like, and I think I know that our high school and our middle school, which is where the survey is done, really lean heavy on that data as they're looking at their WASC plans, as they're looking at the work that they're doing with their teachers, especially in social emotional learning. And it really helps them focus the work that they want to do. And I'd be happy to send you some sample questions.
Yeah, I'd be curious too, like if the staff, the teachers, and everybody, if they see a value to that survey in terms of the way the questions.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thanks. I was just curious.
We used to do it once a year, and it was requested by sites to do it twice a year, so that they could look at the beginning of the year and see where kids are feeling. And oftentimes those scores may be a little lower because they don't necessarily have relationships with their teachers at that point in the time. And then as they do work over the course of the year, is that work making a difference? And so this was the first year we gave it twice.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Beetson. Was Mr. Rahill going to talk at this point on that, or are we moving on to the next item?
Yeah, I think he'll move on to the next.
Okay.
If you have no further questions, so I'll bring this back to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The next one is 12.5. And I'm going to close this out from the meeting, and I'm going to see if there's any members of our audience that would like to speak on 12.5. And I do not see anybody raising their hand and getting excited about it. So I am going to open us back up to our regular meeting. And this is going to be Mr. Rahill, public hearing on the 2022-23 budget for the Benicia Unified School District.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, and we'll give you some information here on our budget for 22-23. We will inform you what the governor proposed in his governor's May revised budget, how that transpires to our Benicia School District. And here we are conducting the public hearing, which is a requirement before June 9th when we ask you to adopt our budget. Okay. Do you want me to get access for you right now? I'll get you access at the end of the presentation, or is that okay? Okay. And we can go to the next one. So each year, California's governor, he does provide a May revised budget for school districts, and which is used to prepare their school budgets for the upcoming school year. Between now in May and the end of June, the California legislature works with the governor to meet and create and approve a final state budget, which is where schools get most of their school funding. However, regardless of when a final state budget is approved, our school districts here in California use the May Revise and other local indicators to put its school budget together and ask the school board to approve that at its June meeting. Then, once the state has a final state budget, any impacts we report back to you at a school board meeting, and we propose any adjustments if there should be any adjustments from the governor's May Revise. So some of those May Revise highlights that we have included in our budget tonight for this public hearing is the governor's proposing a 6.56% cost of living adjustment, which is commonly referred to as a COLA. And he does propose some additional funding for the LCFF, which specific amounts have yet to be determined. The LCFF is proposed to be funded at our current enrollment, which would be adjusted by a prior 1-year 88 percentage. The clarification has been provided that currently is still being proposed for a prior 3-year 88 percentage. And that is the one that would benefit our school district the most. The state LCFF, that is the main source of funding for schools for Benicia Unified in 22-23. That jumps over the $10,000 per student amount at $10,269. That includes what they call a base grant plus an additional 20% amount for supplemental grants for those students who are income eligible English language learners, foster students, or are experiencing homelessness. We have about 25% of our student population in one of those groups. So, May Revise highlights, yes, free tasty meals. So this year, yes, 2, and it's not just one free lunch a day. It also is 1 free breakfast a day. So any student, come one, come all, please students try the delicious school food, and you can come and get a free breakfast, and you can also get a free lunch every day of the year. Yes, so please give them a try. There's my happy face again. TK. What is TK? We still kind of are getting the word out. It's a new program. There's flashback a little bit here. Kids in the past started public school at 5 years old in kindergarten. And so there's a movement in California, and there has been for a few years, where kids will eventually, all 4-year-olds will have the ability to start public school at 4 in transitional kindergarten in TK. So right now, the state is phasing that in. And if you meet the birthday cutoff for next year, which is on my next slide. So kids, let's see, I think one more. So kids they'll be starting public school a whole year earlier. Public school for all 4-year-olds in TK. So for next year, if your child turns 5 between September 2nd, 2022 and February 2nd, 2023, please call your elementary school now. Call them as soon as you can so that they can get enrolled in TK. And one last thing on the next slide about TK is the state is also proposing to provide funding to support an additional instructional assistant in every TK classroom to assist the TK teacher or those 4-year-olds that are turning 5 in the TK program. At this point, when the slides were put together, we said we thought so. And that has been clarified in some follow-up between this presentation was done. So it all is subject to the final state budget, but at this point, everything seems to be headed in that direction. We will, in addition to TK, take a look at some other programs here on the next slide. We are happy here in Benicia. We have access to some state preschool and state childcare programs. There's a hold harmless for those programs for 1 more year. So they've relaxed some of the requirements in regards to income eligibility. And we would like, if anyone's interested in preschool or before and after school, again, please call your schools. June and Thelma are downtown here. There's also Eric and Diane that can be reached through the website. State Rainy Day Fund and District Reserve Cap. So in 22-23, our district is complying with a 10% cap on our unrestricted reserves. And that is a relatively new thing. It's been in the law, but in 22-23, that's the first year due to the state's budget that it would implement a 10% cap on our local unrestricted reserves. Again, we are complying with that. And the reason behind that is because the state in its budget process is contributing to a state rainy day fund, which in recessions or other types of emergencies would be available and could be distributed to school districts. Now, we don't have any information on the detail of how the state of California would send state rainy day funds down to school districts, but that is what we would be looking at and asking for help from the state should another Great Recession or emergency happen.
So when you're complying with that, what does that mean to be complying?
So when you look at our reserve, if you take 10% of our expenditures, budgeted expenditures, then when you look at the unrestricted reserves in our fund balance, that is below the 10% cap amount, 10% of our expenditures.
So theoretically, if it was above 10%, what would a district have to do?
You would you have some options. If you presented a budget greater than 10%, you would definitely have to have previously worked with your county superintendent of schools, or you could take some local board action to officially commit additional funds for specific purposes, which would take it out of the calculation.
So is the theory with this concept that they don't want to see districts that have an overly large unrestricted ending balance or reserve like above 10%? Is that the concept?
My understanding is the concept is because the state of California has established the state rainy day fund, is that they wanted to identify a number that they felt that schools would be capped at, and should those needs arise, then you would go to the state of California.
So the theory is you don't have to save the money on your own as a district because the state has a rainy day fund. So they're trying to make sure. Okay, I was just trying to figure out.
Yeah. But again, it would also allow local boards to consider if they wanted to take official action on commitments if you needed to or wanted to.
So Tim, so when we talked about this before, and I'm wondering if maybe you can explain it to the public as well as to us. So our budget is about $54 million, right? And 1%, I'm sorry, 3% that the state requires is 1.62 million. And then evidently in years past, the board voted to increase our reserve by 1%, which would be 2.1 million, something like that. I'm just using, so now we have a $12 million reserve. So can you explain why our reserve is so high?
So that's a really good question. Can we save that for a future slide when there's an actual pie chart with the fund balance?
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
Can we do that? That would be
yes. Thank you.
Graphic to have up on the screen.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, and then this next one is the $6 million with from the previous presentation proposed at this time, but there's significant money that the governor's proposing to pass along to school districts. It is being proposed at about $1,500 for ADA. Could be considered as a source to continue the Lcap programs that we've been doing over using one-time funds for a multi-year plan. We've also are expecting to get considerable additional fundings for after-school programs that are categorized in the Expanding Learning Opportunities Program, ELOP. They could be significant dollars. This one we haven't seen actually quantified, but we're hearing possibilities of 3 to 4 times the funding. And we received $377,000 this year. So those are significant funds that the state of California is proposing to provide for after-school expanded learning opportunities for schools, for kids. And we'll also keep our eyes open to find out more details about what type of educator workforce grants will eventually come to the districts. That probably have to wait until the final state budget is approved to see what that is, but it's basically a proposal to provide funding for training and hiring employees in the education sector. So we'll kind of move into now some more local indicators. Obviously, we're asking ourselves, where are all the California kids at? Are they staying home due to COVID? Are they moving out of state? A little bit of both, we think. And the federal government and state have provided some one-time grants to help us, since a lot of our funding is based on our students enrolled and attending schools. And a note here on what we commonly refer to as declining student enrollment. And just regardless of the reason, like most school districts in California, there are less students enrolling in the Benicia School District. And over the last 10 years, about 590 students less. That's from 4,954 in 2011-12 to now just at 4,364 in 21-22. And so you can see the student enrollment is declining. We put it on a graph here, kind of small numbers, but you can just see the trend in that blue line, again, decreasing. And as we project into next year, a reduction of 32, that is a loss of 622 students over 11 years. So we watch that closely from year to year. We touch base with our principals and see what they're hearing about the upcoming year. Again, our schools are funded. We're talking about the declining enrollment, which does translate into, if we have less kids enrolling, that'll be less kids attending schools. And that's how we get funded, based on student attendance. So it's important for our kids not just to enroll, but to attend. Obviously, we haven't gotten out of the COVID-19 pandemic yet, and that is causing kids to continue. Some are getting sick and are continuing to stay at home, and so we definitely need to continue to monitor that. In this year, it looks like our attendance on average is about 93%. And prior to COVID, it was about 96%, which means that, if you have 100 kids, that means 96 kids showed up. And you might say, oh, well, 3% difference, that's a small number, but that would amount to about what we refer to as the 130 average daily attendance times our funding rate. And so that's right around 1.3 million. Yes. So the governor is proposing to change the way schools are funded, again, by the average daily attendance. We've always been held harmless for 1 year. That seems to be moving along. We're hopeful that the hold harmless for the prior single year will be expanded to allow for that prior 3-year average, which is beneficial to our district. Our next several set of slides is the same that we've included back on May 5th at the last meeting. We just wanted, since staffing is such a big part of our budget, we just wanted to include that again in one spot so that you have the detail for our staffing over the last several years. In 22-23, we're going to be just over 465 employees, and we provide some detail for the different categories of employees. That one is for classified staff. And our last one is, we have some other funds outside of our general operating fund. So key fiscal factors for our district budget is we are continuing to decline, and that's 32 students for 22-23. That just is of note that we're assuming 48 more 4-year-olds will come to TK. It's a little low right now, so if we have less TK students show up in August for TK class, that minus 32 projection will be bigger, a bigger reduction. So we will continue to monitor that low transitional kindergarten, and also kindergarten enrollment is a little bit low right now. It's picking up a little bit. So we have our eyes and ears open for those kids, and working with our elementary principals, and using the 6.56% COLA for our LCFF and our attendance rate. We have included some of the key fiscal factors for our salary increases on step and column, and reflecting savings from any retirements. We're reminded for our retirement plans that they're asking employers to contribute more for next year. For us, it's about $708,000, continuously analyzing our utility costs, which are one of our bigger costs after salary and benefits for PG&E. Water rates, about a 6.5% increase, sewer rates, about a 3% increase. We do benefit from all of the solar panels you see at our schools, about $129,000 a year. So those are providing some net savings to us, and keep our copiers in mind for next year when that lease comes up. So employee negotiations are considered relatively still open for 22-23. We've met with our unions, and we're happy to say that we do have tentative agreements with both of them that are now going out to their membership for vote. It's the plan to bring those back for board ratification in June 9th. And also that would be one of the big additions into the board adopted budget at the time of putting the public hearing budget together. The tentative agreements did not exist, and so that was not included, but for the board adopted budget, those costs would be reflected in those tentative agreements. We're continuing to monitor our substitute teacher needs, and we provided some updated information in the packet for Martinez, I believe, in Mount Diablo is in there. And we're reminded of our medical rates that are come up every October. And so that medical rate, that for the Kaiser low rate, did go to about $1,005 a month. This last comment provides for our positive certification with this budget, providing for that state's 3% reserve. And again, we will bring back any changes once the state finally approves it after mid to late June. We have 45 days to bring that information back to you. If there's any changes to LCFF or TK, a final amount for the one-time grants, and anything that might impact us in our multi-year projections. So I just have a few more slides here, including a couple pie charts that you've seen before. And so we have budgeted our revenues for 22-23 at $54.1 million. Most of that is in the 3/4 of the pie chart in the blue color there for our state local control funding formula, and then other funds from the state and federal government to make up the $54 million. Our expenditures are higher than those revenues at $56.5 million. Again, those are due to operating our Lcap plan and spending down some carryover funds in the 22-23 year. If you look at our expenditure groupings for the services we provide to the students through our employees, our teachers, our counselors, our administrators, our classified staff, is at about 85%, and the rest on supplies and services. And so this next pie chart is our fund balance, and that lists after accounting for the net operating loss and spending down the reserve at the $9.9 million, some of which those are restricted and they fall outside of the 10% cap. And so the ones on here, if you look at the unrestricted reserves, I believe it is closer to about 9.5%. And so that is how, if you have your fund balance and you break it out into your different pieces, the unrestricted pieces and the restricted pieces, the 10% cap is on the unrestricted amount. Do we want to talk about that a little bit more, or? Okay, I apologize for the, yeah.
No, ma'am, sorry. Been a long day, long day.
Okay, and we did include the breakdown of utility costs last time, so we just wanted to show that it's basic. PG&E is about half of our utility costs, with water and sewer next, and phone and internet making up the last remaining piece of our next largest expenditure there. We're going to keep monitoring our substitute teacher rates on the next slide. During COVID, we had a tough time getting substitute teachers, so we were competitive with our local districts and did a pretty good job. It was not easy at times. And so, it really depends the cost of a higher substitute teacher rate. It just depends on how much subs you need. And so we just did a range over the last several years between a low of 2,000 sub days to 3,300 sub days. It can cost the district anywhere between $238,000 to $404,000 by providing a higher substitute teacher rate. And so at this point, we would revert back to the previous substitute teachers rate. We haven't gotten word that our surrounding districts are committed to continuing the rates that were implemented this year due to COVID. And you can see on this chart, once you have access to it, if you can't see it up there, that we are, I think, we're managed to be higher than our surrounding districts, except Fairfield did have a $15 higher rate for the retiree. And yes. Okay. Our employee medical rates, some information is provided here. Probably throughout the Bay Area, we're seeing an increase due to hospital costs and post-COVID services. And so our Kaiser single rate is going from $932 a month to $1,005. And our last slide in this packet gives us some next steps. Here we are today on the 26th, doing our public hearing on the budget. Next Friday, June 3rd, is the last day of school. We come back that following Thursday here on June 9th, and we present to you the final school board budget for your consideration and approval. And then we pass that along to the County Office of Education and the California Department of Education. And after the state officially approves its budget towards the mid to late June, then we bring back any impact that might have on our school budget within 45 days. So I I also, in the packet, I also included the previous pie charts, which some of them were cut and paste into here. There's some additional information that's in that packet for your information. If we want to go through that, we can, or you can refer to that. That one you should have access to. Yeah. So this was this was the first time I used this format through Google Sheets. And so we will definitely make sure that you have access to that. It was my intention that you had access to it, but it was the first time that I had done that to try to incorporate some of the story with some of the with the graphs.
Thank you.
Yes, we will. We are considering inter-district agreements for TK.
All right, we are moving on to items in the 13 category, our non-consent action items. First up is 13.1, consideration and approval to award the contract for the Benicia Middle School interior courtyard project to the lowest bidder. And I'm going to invite Mrs. Roxanne Egan.
Thank you.
Up, to talk to us about this. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time.
I know. Thank you. It's nice to see all of you as well.
Sure.
So I'm going to give you, I'm sorry that we were not able to offer the summaries ahead of time. It's because we have the bid deadlines were on Tuesday. So in just wanting to keep everything moving quickly, I appreciate you letting us be on your agenda for tonight. We were pleased with the bids that we got. We did get a bid from J-Walt Construction in the amount of $612,000. I'm sorry, $512,000. $620. And so this is for a project that is the improvements to the interior courtyard between the MPR and the gym. It was part of our phase priority 1 for the middle school modernization. And the contractor's price is within 1%. It's actually lower than the engineer's cost estimate. So we feel the numbers are good. We've had good experience with this contractor, and we're really pleased with them. So staff recommendation is to award the contract to the low bidder, who is J-Walt Construction, in the amount of $512,000. $512,620.
It's a mouthful, right?
Yes. The construction would happen this summer. If you choose to approve it, it would start June 7th, and they'll be done before school returns.
Okay. Are we through everything now at this point at Venetian Middle School?
No.
We're not.
No. So the seismic.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the seismic work, they're finishing. They pulled off on Building B, which they have to do work on the roof still at the wall to roof intersections. We wanted to wait to minimize impact on the site users, so they'll be finishing that up. That will all be done this summer. And then future phases, the other thing that we're going to do this summer is some new audio equipment for the MPR for their drama program. And then future phases will be a larger covered area outside of the kitchen serving area, and also some covered areas in this area where we're putting hard spaces right now between the MPR and the gym. And lastly, we have on the items to take out the wall between it. There's 2 rooms right now that the drama class uses in B. I think it's B5 and it's not B5. Anyhow, it's those 2 rooms on the right-hand side. They're congruent. They are adjacent to each other, but there's a wall in between them. So the intent is to open them up, and they could use it as like a small black box theater space.
That's the very front.
Yep.
On the right side, right?
Yes.
The very front.
Yeah. And so, and then there's also landscaping in the front along the Southampton in that area. So there's a few phases that will continue. The biggest ones we're really pleased to have made progress on And I'll just share too that we have more eligibility for grants. And so we're going to include this to get matching funds for some future grants that we'll be applying for shortly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Yeah.
So the areas that we're going to clean up, that completed area that is going to be covered areas, right?
In the future. Yes. Within a year. Plus or
Global
minus,
warming.
you know.
Well, I know we talked about that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I didn't quite hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
so I would like to see if we have a motion on the table for consideration and approval award the contract to Benicia for the Benicia Middle School Interior Courtyard project to the lowest bidder. Do I have a first, or do I have a motion? Sorry.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call. Roll call, please. Yes.
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 I've been called many.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to 13.2 consideration. Thank you. It's good to see you again. Consideration and approval of the transitional kindergarten grant plan. And I am going to ask now Mrs. Rice to join us.
Good evening, board and cabinet, Ms. Martinez, and our Benicia community. I also want to say thank you to Anne and Harriet for staying strong with us until the end. So Mr. Rahill did share some of the information about our universal transitional kindergarten. I'm here tonight to talk about the planning grant. I also wanted to point out that Dr. June Regis also partnered with my department. She is the director of our Child Development Unit and Adult Education, and the TK-12 world and our pre-K world have collaborated on moving from transitional kindergarten to universal TK. So Mr. Rahill explained that the goal of universal TK is to provide an opportunity for 4-year-olds to attend our public education and get the opportunity to have that really robust learning environment in a very equitable way. And tonight I'm going to present to you what the grant outcomes and expectations are, and then in hopes that you will approve the grant as written. I spoke about the equitable piece. By providing universal transitional kindergarten to our 4-year-olds, we know that the research out there is that reaching our students prior to kindergarten really sets the stage for their future learning. And by opening the door for eventually by 25, 26, having 4-year-olds attend public education as an option for families, free of charge, just like public education, that really opens the door for families to have that opportunity. I'm not going to go through this next slide. You have it as we've presented before, but I do want to point out that in the grant, one of the pieces that I'll talk about is curriculum. And the curriculum needs to be developmentally appropriate. It also needs to be play-based, and those are repeatedly mentioned throughout the Senate bill as well as in what the grant expectations are. Also, Mr. Rahill talked about staffing. I'm excited to hear about the funding for the additional staffing. Our ratio will be the 2-to-1, or excuse me, 2-to-1. That would be great, wouldn't it be? It will be 2 to 24 to start out. So one credentialed teacher with one assistant. And then I've already had the opportunity to meet with our up and coming UTK team, minus the one I think that might have been brought forward today, as I don't know what the outcome there was, but they're really excited to be part of this journey of really embracing our pre-K kids, and we've already begun looking at we've already looked at vetted curriculum. They've discussed it, and at our next meeting, I'll be bringing forth a recommendation for an adoption. They're really excited. This slide here, Mr. Rahill also shared, so I'll leave that for your review, but it gives us a timeline of the rollout up until 2025, 2026, the plan. And then we get to the grant requirements. And with the grant requirements, I'm going to go through each one of these because it's kind of tiny there unless you have it in front of you. But the state budget package established the UPK Planning and Implementation Grant Program. I want to point out that they use UPK and UTK interchangeably, but basically talking about that bridging program from our preschool to our kindergarten, which will be the Universal Transitional Kindergarten, and it's a mouthful, so we say UTK. So, and that's expanding that access in our LEAs, and that refers to us as our district. As a condition of receiving the grant funds, state law requires each LEA, us, to create a plan articulating how all children in the attendance area of our district will have access to full-day learning programs the year before kindergarten that meets the needs of parents, including through partnerships with the LEA's expanded learning offerings, the after-school education and safety program, the California State Preschool Program, Head Start, and other community-based learning and care programs. Really exciting for us, as I've spoken with some other districts, that we already have our child development units connected with our district and on site, and we're already equipped and to serve 4-year-olds. Some of the other districts that I've spoken with that don't have the on-site connection with the preschool programs are having to work through getting the licensee to serve kids that are 4 years old. For example, I spoke to someone in Sacramento, and they're equipped right now to have 4 years, 9 months. So they're trying to plan out on how they're going to meet this grant. So I'm excited that we already have that partnership. The plan must also be developed for consideration by our district's governing board. And that's why I'm here today, by June 30th. The law does not require LEAs to operate a TK program that offers full-day learning to all children the year before kindergarten. However, the LEAs must plan to offer full-day early learning programming to all students, and how they are partnering or plan to partner with other programs to ensure that every child has access to extended learning and care. So what that is also saying is that, again, as I mentioned above, as we're going to open it up to earlier and younger children, that we need to also be able to connect to support the families and be able to provide the opportunity for care after they're with us. And then also the grant requires that the allowable uses include planning costs, hiring, recruitment costs, staffing, and professional development, along with classroom materials and supports. Sorry, that was a mouthful. Yes.
I had a question.
Mhm.
I just want to clarify to the families at home that might be watching that the Universal Transitional Kindergarten is not a requirement. It is an optional.
Thank you. So
item.
yes, Universal Transitional Kindergarten, just as TK right now, is not required. It is an option, so parents can choose, and I have that on another slide as well, but parents can choose
to not start their kids then or to send to another preschool. Not just to us, but we are.
Thank you.
We are
Bring 'em
offering
on,
that.
though. We
Yes,
want
but
them.
please, yes. All right. So what we're doing under this grant, and new since the last time we spoke, is UTK will be offered at all 4 of our elementary sites now. Before it wasn't at Mary Farmer, but we now have it at Farmer, and that's really exciting. UTK will follow the 5-hour schedule that kindergarten currently follows, as well as our current TK follows. And then again, the our childcare, our CDU, as I spoke of, they are already offer 3-year-olds, but they're expanding to really focusing on the 3-year-olds as well as 4-year-olds who will not yet qualify for our universal TK because it's that rollout over the years. And that's another partnership that we're really working closely with as far as the curriculum that we're looking at for our universal transitional kindergarten is going to really build upon what they're going to be doing with the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds that don't yet qualify. And then also under the umbrella of the grant, we needed to, as we would anyways, but host engagement sessions to make the public aware. Some things that were added on to that, though, Dr. Beatson and Dr. Regis also reached out to our community-based child care programs to make sure that they were aware of this shift because that will affect them as well, and just give them the opportunity to hear, what is coming down from the state, and just to, really be good neighbors and put it out there that this is a community-based thing, and they may want to think about who they're supporting as well. And then as well as we've met with our TK teachers to get their feedback and input, and different people from CDU. So in the grant, we had to write how we were going to be using the funds, and part of that is with the workforce and recruitment. And we will be providing reimbursement for coursework for our early childhood education units for elementary teachers who are hired as UTK teachers to make sure that they meet the requirements for that. Reimbursement for coursework towards obtaining of multiple subject credential for our preschool teachers who are hired as UTK teachers. And then also providing them support in the new curriculum that's going to be more developmentally appropriate, training on working with students that are 4 years old, and setting up learning environments. The curriculum instruction, we've discussed before, I know, at prior meetings, but again, just to really point out that the intention is to really be developmentally appropriate, and a lot of that is done through the learning through play. And then the facilities and services operations. While I'm here, I did want to just give a shout out to a teacher, Rachel Powell. She's our current TK teacher. She will also be our UTK teacher at Matthew Turner. And she's been great about tapping into, as we're creating new classrooms and ordering furniture, etc., and taking a look at it as her lens of being a current TK teacher and giving us that feedback on those rooms, as well as Alfredo Romero, who is the Director of Maintenance and Operations, I know has partnered with Roxanne Egan, who is just up here, on looking forward about what the classrooms will look like. And also a thank you to our principals and Mr. Steve Slater in particular, because we are doing the first bullet of repurposing some existing spaces to create new classrooms. And we just want to say thank you to Matthew Turner for being flexible in this shift. I know it wasn't a choice, but they're still handling it with grace, and we greatly appreciate it. And so with those little 4-year-olds when they're up there. So this just shows you from to 25, 26, this is what we anticipate. Again, it comes back as Tim talked about, enrollment pending. And then BUSD, we shared before, will receive the $140,242 through June 30th, 2024. And again, to recap, the purpose was to use these funds to reimburse towards the education and credentials, the ECE, early childhood education units that the teachers may need, professional learning, and then classroom materials and supplies. And with that, again, you have the grant attached, which is really long and goes down to every little detail, but please peruse through it. And are there any questions?
Nobody's biting, so I think we're good. We're good. I'm gonna go ahead and ask if we have a motion. Can we get a motion on the table to consider for the consideration and approval of the transitional kindergarten grant plan? Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Long.
Yes.
Trustee Perici.
Yes.
And Trustee Grubbs.
Yes.
One absent. Okay, thank you for that. Next up, Dr. Gill. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Madam President, trustees, Dr. Young, and my dear cabinet, and rest of the audience. We have a beautiful audience here tonight in community and this. So I have 3 items. I'll go over first one first. This is an annual, like a regular routine. Basically, over the summer, we in HR, we work all summer long. That's our most busiest time of the year. And so we want to get your authorization to be able to hire and offer contracts to people who have not full credentials yet, such as PIPs, TIPS, and sometimes they call them GLAP credential. That means person has a full credential, but they might be teaching a class in certain areas. And then as they come along next year, we will bring them to you. This is just a prior authorization, and that we do this annually. We have to do this by June 30th.
I remember. Okay, so I'd like to see if we have a motion on the table for consideration and approval of the declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Moss.
Yes.
Trustee Perici.
Yes.
And Trustee Grubbs.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, why is my computer restarting? Sorry. Never mind. Doing its own thing. Anyway. Okay, there's
went away.
whatever. All right. 13.4, consideration and approval of resolution number 2122-29, release of temporary certificated employees. Holy smokes. Thank you, Dr. Gill. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. So this item, we actually already released temp employees. There's sometimes positions we are watching the budget, saying, can we make this permanent? Also watching the need. So this position is only 20%, but where this time the decision is to keep this position still temp or not, bring it next year, or keep it temp. That's why we have to just release this 20% only. And I do want to apologize for whatever reason. The same document from 13.5 and 13.6 got attached. So the attachment is incorrect, but I am giving you the correct attachment right here as a hard copy, which is for this item. So basically, it's just sharing that we are requesting to release a 20% release of a temp position at the end of the school year. There was one of those copying and pasting errors, basically, that incorrect document got attached twice, basically.
Okay.
Two items.
It
yes.
happens.
Yes.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, so I'd like to see if we have a motion for consideration and approval of resolution number 21. Wait.
This is 21, 22, 29. Yes.
Oh, yeah, see, I was on the wrong one. 21, 22, 29, release of temporary certificated employees. Do I have a motion on the table?
I'll move to approve resolution number 21-2229.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mrs. Martinez.
President Slater.
Yes.
Trustee Knox.
Yes.
Trustee Perucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
And Trustee Gross. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 13, yes, thank you. 13.5, consideration and approval of resolution number 21-22-30, release of certificated probationary employee. Dr. Gill, you're up again.
Yes, ma'am. So for this one, the two attachments that you see down there, they're the same exact attachments. The accurate title should the attachment should be resolution 21-22-30, and it should say probationary release. And this is an item, basically a probationary certificated employee. His recommendation is to not re-elect this employee at the end of this school year.
Okay. So should I change that in my wording then? Change it to probationary release rather than how it's written?
Probationary release or non-election, same thing.
Oh,
So
okay.
Use a different term. Yes.
Okay. Can I get a motion on the table for item 13.5?
Okay, I move to approve resolution number 21-22-30.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please, Mrs. Martinez.
President Slater.
Yes.
Trustee Knox.
Yes.
Trustee Perucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
And Trustee Gross. Yeah.
Thank you. Looks like we have now reached the end of our meeting. I would like to thank everybody for being here and joining us, and tell you all I'm truly looking forward to all the promotions and graduation next week, and get a good night's rest for a new day tomorrow. Thank you and have a good night.